Right now, let's focus on the BRICS Summit, and South Africa will be hosting it. Just one problem though.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin will be attending the upcoming BRICS Summit in person later this year.
The International Criminal Court issued a warrant for Putin's arrest on war crimes.
The leaders of all BRICS nations have accepted their invite.
It would be expected that South Africa arrest Putin if he sets foot in the country.
The government has found a loophole. They have granted diplomatic immunity to all summit attendees.
With diplomatic immunity set for next month, South Africa hosts the 15th annual BRICS Summit of 2023 at the Sandton Convention Center at Johannesburg. This summit has garnered international attention due to an outstanding warrant of Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, by the ICC, the International Criminal Court. South Africa has remained quite steadfast in this decision to move forward with hosting the BRICS Summit despite the ICC signatory status. This has the world curious on how all of this will play out between the ICC, South Africa, and Russia. Could this decision warrant a sanction from the West? How will this affect the international trades and cooperation? What does South Africa actually have to say about all of this? We'll analyze all of this and much more here at the Financial Almanac on Basel, the BRICS Summit, which will bring core members and many nations that have applied that are very much interested in applying this international 2009 economic organization that fosters economic cooperation and fosters solutions for global obstacles. The arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin has cast a spotlight on this event, building a level of uncertainty and speculation. South Africa has a non-aligned stance and remains unwavered in hosting this year's summit amongst all this intrigue.
What will happen? President Putin coming to South Africa in the context of the warrant of arrest. The president and the government have been given a mandate by the ANC. Of course, they act within the law to deal with that particular matter because it's our turn to host BRICS Summit. At the right moment, the president will brief the nation and everybody else about what will happen. Our parliamentarians here have been given that responsibility to amend the domestication of the Rome state. And that is what we are talking about as the African National Congress. Having exhausted all the avenues of ensuring that BRICS become a success. So as the ANC, we want a successful BRICS.
One reason South Africa remains resolute this year as its host is because South Africa is upholding the principles of sovereignty and non-interference in the global affairs of other states.
Quote, "This is a standard conferment of immunities that we do for all international conferences and summits held in South Africa, irrespective of the level of participation," end quote, said by the Department of Foreign Affairs. Quote, "The immunities are for the conference and not for specific individuals. They are meant to protect the conference and its attendees from the jurisdiction of the host country for the duration of the conference," end quote, said the Department of Foreign Affairs. Article 98 of the ICC Rome Statute states, and I quote, "The court may not proceed with a request for surrender or assistance which would require the requested state to act inconsistently with its obligations under international law with respect to the state or diplomatic immunity of a person of a third state, unless the court can first obtain the cooperation of the third state for the waiver of the immunity," end of quote. Some say this wording provides South Africa with a chance to invite Putin and not be under any obligation to arrest him. Let me know down below in the comments what you think.
The arrest warrant against President Putin is unprecedented, and South Africa is staying on course as a show of solidarity to its BRICS alliance. This asserts the respect and economic cooperation between respective sovereigns. With this summit taking place in Johannesburg, not Durban, this signals that South Africa values diplomatic dialogue, negotiations, and resolutions to disputes rather than unilateral actions from the West. In addition, South Africa is focused on economic stability and to avoid exacerbating tension during times of extreme anxiety around the world's geopolitical and economic environment. The arrest of a sitting head of a developed nation is an extremely sensitive issue.
If
Vladimir
it was
Putin.
according to the ANC, we will want President Putin to be here even tomorrow. But
you would welcome Vladimir Putin here right now?
Of course, we will welcome.
A man who is being investigated for war crimes by the International Criminal Court.
We will welcome him to come here as part and parcel of BRICS. Putin is a head of state. Do you think that a head of state can just be arrested anywhere? How many crimes have your country committed in Iraq? Did you see anybody standing against that in the United Kingdom and Britain?
This issue continues considering deployment of nuclear armament is theoretically very present.
The use of nuclear weapons is certainly theoretically possible. For Russia, this is possible if there is a threat to our territorial integrity, independence and sovereignty, the existence of the Russian state. Nuclear weapons are created in order to ensure our security in the broadest sense of the word, to ensure the existence of the Russian state. But we, firstly, do not have such a need, and secondly, the very fact of reasoning on this topic already reduces the possibility of lowering the threshold for the use of the weapons. We have more such weapons than NATO countries. They know that, and they keep on inducing us to begin talks on their reduction. No way.
With geopolitical turbulence at near extreme levels, South Africa's calmness and hospitality does not escalate global affairs. By engaging all member states at the BRICS Summit, is in fact trying to diffuse tension and promote constructive diplomacy amongst the East and the global South. We see this emphasized in this month's meeting in July called the Russian-African Summit. So be sure to subscribe as I will cover this diplomatic summit. With South Africa de-escalating tensions, it's positioning itself as a facilitator and mediator of diplomacy, stability, and cooperation in international affairs. Dear friends, we value your interest in searching for ways to resolve the conflict. After we, as promised, withdrew troops from Kiev, the Kiev authorities, as their masters usually do, threw it away to the trash of history. Therefore, I understand your concern. I share it. And of course, we are ready to consider any of your proposals. But we did not refuse negotiations. It's the Ukrainian side who refused. Hosting the BRICS Summit, despite the paperwork against Putin, is seen by many that South Africa is actually strengthening its role within its BRICS bloc. By actioning its commitment to the bloc and its steadfast resolve to maneuver delicate diplomatic challenges, South Africa is demonstrating its reliability as a partner, thus enhancing its reputation amongst many that were asking what was South Africa doing in BRICS to begin with. By demonstrating its commitment, this opens many possibilities for future cooperation and cements South Africa as a foundational country in world relations. The move to proceed with the BRICS Summit is also driven by economic self-sufficiency of the BRICS nations, promoting international trade with payment rails outside of the US networks, and also to discuss investment opportunities and increase tourism to South Africa. South Africa is also showcasing that it's attracting business and investments, fostering growth and prosperity. South Africa is not endorsing any alleged actions by the ICC, nor is it condemning President Putin by hosting this year's summit. South Africa seems interested in protecting its national interests amongst diplomatic cooperative nations.
But there's a great deal of media interest in our meeting because there are some who don't wish us to have relations with an old historical friend. We have made it clear that Russia is a friend, and we've had cooperative partnerships for many, many years, including partnerships as we combated the apartheid regime.
While the situation may appear contentious and unconventional, it is vital to keep in mind the positive foundation that South Africa brings in its stance. Its stance remains to promote a multipolar world where many economies may flourish, rather than a unipolar world where a few would benefit in today's economic climate. Besides the pursuit of liberty, peaceful resolution, and economic sovereignty, hosting this year's summit as a mediator may put itself in the crosshairs of Western-led sanctions and the continuation of a unipolar dollar-weaponized world. With sanctions very much a possibility, the world would further divide if the West were to engage in this manner. South Africa continues the country's recognition in preserving the credibility and integrity of international institutions such as the ICC.
Sages that South Africa would have been showing that it prefers its relationship with Mr. Putin to its relationship with all the member states of the Rome Statute. But it is important to ensure that this does not become a round two of what we experienced when ICC had issues with South Africa in relation to al-Bashir. It is, everyone must try hard to avoid that to be a redux of that situation.
Omar al-Bashir was the Sudanese leader previously indicted by the International Court, leading to an earlier row with South Africa.
While the arrest warrant out for President Putin represents a challenge, South Africa adherence to the principles of due process and the presumption of innocence promotes the ongoing operation of these institutions. South Africa reinforces that legal matters be addressed with the frameworks of established norms and institutions. This summit brings the opportunity for South Africa to advance its national interest as well. On top of the agenda is the BRICS new currency.
Let me start off by saying, President Lula, don't worry, when we have the BRICS meeting, the issue of currency is top on the agenda.
Be sure to open a new tab to check out more about BRICS new currency at the end of this video, but I'll also link it at the end as well. This new currency, in addition to BRICS Pay, the payment network that competes against the Western-led SWIFT system, can bypass sanctions and promote the East and the Global South to trade more freely with one another and not fear about US-led sanctions. With South Africa's unique ability to shape this year's agenda, it will also cover domestic and allied concerns, well-deserved attention. This includes you hitting that like button and infrastructure investments, increasing domestic employment, sustainable development, and technology integration. By leveraging this summit, South Africa will benefit from increased collaboration and support from friendly BRICS members. This summit will continue to highlight and elevate Africa's continental potential and continued importance to global development projects and emerging economies around the world. This role within BRICS as the only African country is a beacon to the world to a shifting framework of investment into the African continent, and a new multipolar world and a transition away from modern-day political colonialism.
We know our friends. We know the people who liberated us. That led to the liberation of South Africa were coming from Russia. Cuba brought the soldiers. Russia brought the armaments. We were supposed to be the ones that are being complemented and supported by these other countries who were found wanting. We don't want ICC's hypocrisy.
The same colonial forces will continue to resist these changes and throw continued criticism and argue that hosting this summit will undermine the credibility of the ICC and sets a concerning tone to the future of South Africa. It is critical to consider the context that South Africa is a neutral, non-aligned nation with respect to the current Eastern European war. South Africa's commitment to dialogue, conflict resolution, and economic justice should not be overlooked by the complexity of today's geopolitics. At the end of the day, if the ICC sends a representative to arrest Vladimir Putin in August at Johannesburg, this would be devastating because that may enter us into another world war, but I highly doubt that would happen. Very much so, people want peace wherever you are. Let me know your thoughts down below so I can give you a like for investing in yourself. If you haven't seen the new BRICS currency video, check it out right here. And if you've already seen that, check out this video next. And I want to thank you again for watching Financial Almanac.